This is a question and answer session, so a few questions have come in. I'll ask a question first. Is everybody doing okay? A few damaged tents, been trying to fix them up today. It's part of life. First question. Dear Ajahn, thank you for the guidance and teachings. What are the three aspects of each of the Four Noble Truths that make it 12-fold? Well, it's the first test of our arithmetic. Four Noble Truths. Three aspects, so 3 times 4, 12, as you say, 12-fold. So these Four Noble Truths are central to what the Buddha realized, but then when he started teaching from the awakened mind, this is the system that he developed, talking about practice, he compared it to like a doctor. You go to a doctor with your physical pain, a problem, you have a health problem. So the first thing the doctor does is assess what is the problem. So there is a problem. You might say that's a statement, isn't it? I have a problem, doctor. I have an ache or a pain somewhere, I have a pain somewhere, or I have a cut, or I have some symptoms, I have a fever, I have a problem. And the doctor has to assess what that problem is, find out from you and from tests and checking you. So that's like the first noble truth. I have dukkha, there is dukkha. Actually the Buddha was very careful, he didn't say I have or make it personal, because that's part of the problem. It's because we make everything very personal that we have stress and suffering. But the statement is there is suffering. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. There is suffering, at least sometimes in life, isn't it? Sometimes physical, sometimes mental, sometimes just the way things are. Suffering, not satisfactory. So like the doctor, you get that sorted, and then there's obviously going to be a cause for this suffering, or you're looking for the cause. So the doctor goes looking, having established that there's a problem, the doctor goes looking for the cause of that problem. So if you have a pain, maybe it's from a bruise, or from an illness, something is wrong, and he has to find what the cause is. The Buddha said they have to do the same with dukkha, or suffering. What is the cause? And he identified that the cause is tanha, upadana. These phrases that we hear a lot of, tanha, craving, upadana, clinging or attachment. And when expanded out, it becomes the teaching we say on dependent origination, paticca samuppada. Causal arising of suffering. And suffering has its causes, and it's like a whole chain reaction of different things. So you might say, well, where does craving come from? Craving comes from feeling. We feel things, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and this stimulates craving. Craving stimulates clinging. Clinging is like the hardening of craving. Or as Luang Buddhadasa used to say, craving is the dog barking, clinging is the dog biting. It hurts more. So suffering has its cause. So that's part of the Buddha's statement. There's suffering, there's a problem, and this problem, the suffering, has a cause. And we are identifying what the cause is. But the good news is, the third noble truth is, there is the end of suffering, the release, the cessation of suffering, nirodha. That's like the doctor saying, this can be cured. You have a pain, but we can cure it. We know what the pain is, we know what the cause is, and we also know there's a cure. There can be an end of the pain, and that's what the doctor's aim, isn't it? Aiming to get you to be free from your illness or your injury or your problem. And the last noble truth is the remedy, what you need to do to get free of this dukkha. We call this magga, the path of practice to be developed. That's the often bitter medicine. So you have your wish to get free from suffering, you have your wish to be free from your flu or your fever, but you have to take the medicine. You have to do the practice, you have to follow magga or cultivate magga. And like many medicines, it's bitter, isn't it? Nowadays, like if you have a cough, I get a cough often, you know that. So they give me all kinds of cough remedies, and all the modern ones, they're all sweet and sticky. They don't work. They taste nice, but they don't work. The good cough remedies are usually the ones that are bitter or don't taste nice. They're much better for you. So practice is a bit like that. Often practice is something you don't really want to do, but that's a sign probably that it's good for you. And you have to grit your teeth and practice. You have to grit your teeth and swallow the bitter medicine, and then you'll be free from your problem. So that's the fourth noble truth. So 4 noble truths, they're like, first of all, the Buddha just sets them out. Suffering, its cause, the end of suffering, and the path leading to the end of suffering. So it's like a statement telling you how things are. Saving you time, because if you have that trust and faith in the Buddha, as a wise teacher who knows from experience, he knows what is true, then you don't have to sit there under a Bodhi tree for eons working out what is suffering and its cause and how to end it. You can do it in one go. You just listen to the Buddha, already saves you a lot of time. If you're doing an exam, he's giving you the cheat sheet straight away. 4 noble truths, here you go. He's helping you. But it's not as simple as that. That's only one, what did you say? Yeah, that's one aspect, it's the statement. There's the 3 aspects. So there's the statement. Then it's what are you going to do with this statement? So like dukkha, you have the statement, there is dukkha. What dukkha is to be known. That's the task, you might say, what you have to do. Having made the statement, there is dukkha, then the Buddha also says, and this has to be known, understood. There is the cause of suffering, that has to be abandoned. So that's the task. Cessation of suffering has to be realized. It's not something you just believe in or read about. You have to actually realize for yourself the end of suffering. The path is something that has to be practiced, developed, or you might say walked. So the second aspect is what you have to do about the first aspect. So there is a path out of suffering, but it has to be developed. There is the cessation of suffering, but it has to be realized. The third aspect is the completion of the course. Suffering to be known, suffering has been known. You've established mindfulness and recognized suffering for what it is. Oh, this is suffering, you know suffering. The cause of suffering has to be abandoned. It has been abandoned. You've done it. That's what the Buddha said. Oh, I've abandoned craving and attachment, no more birth and becoming for me. So he's cut the chain of dependent arising through his practice. No more suffering, no more birth, no more suffering. It's been done, so that's the third aspect. Or with cessation of suffering, that has to be realized. Cessation has been realized, Nibbana. The path has to be developed, and it has been developed, again, leading to Nibbana. So we have 12 aspects, 3 phases. So for those of you who build monasteries, you'll know the importance of getting 3-phase electricity. Most households have single-phase electricity. It's sort of not quite so powerful. But our monastery, we were very lucky. Our neighbour helped get us 3-phase electricity very cheap, so we have very strong power here. Still, we get power outages. What can you do? But we have 3-phase electricity, and 4 Noble Truths need to be practiced or developed 3 phases, not just 1. So it's not just a theory, there's the practical side and there's the completion as well. Or like going to the doctor, there's the theory, what the illness is, there's the treatment, and then there's the cure and the release from that illness. I've been cured. They did the surgery and now I'm free. I'm happy. So like 3 parts to the whole thing. So 3 times 4 is 12. That's how you get it. The whole of Buddhism centers around these teachings and these practices. Second question, what is meant by Sukha Patipata and Dukkha Patipata? The happy practice and the suffering practice. I think that the happy practice is almost like the stuff of myths and legends. I've never met anyone who could reach Nibbana and just kind of slip to it with no pain and no suffering, no difficulty. I guess in the history of Buddhism, and we haven't had just one Buddha, we've had many Buddhas, so I guess in the whole history of Buddhism there have probably been a few people who they're so evolved when they're born, they have so much parami, they just don't really have to go through much dukkha. Everything goes smoothly for them. They meet the Buddha, they hear the Dhamma. First time they meditate, they're already in samadhi. They hear the Dhamma, the 4 Noble Truths immediately make sense for them. They become enlightened just listening to one talk, maybe not even a whole talk. You know, if you're one of those people who gets bored and restless listening to Dhamma talks, 10 minutes in you're shifting and falling asleep or wanting to leave, you should be Sukha Patipata. Maybe just 1 minute in, you just hear one word of Dhamma and boom, enlightened. No trouble at all. As I said, this is the stuff of legend. I haven't met that person yet, but maybe there have been in the history of time and Buddhism, there has been that person. More likely it's to be dukkha patipata, practicing with some difficulty, some pain, shifting, legs hurt, different moods to work through, unhappy, grumpy, moody, then happy and then grumpy again, have strong faith and lose faith, interested in Buddhism, then not interested, illness, difficulty. If we're honest, most people's practice is like that, isn't it? We have ups and downs, good days and bad, periods where the meditation seems to go well, samadhi arises and then samadhi disappears. You either read the biography or hear the talk from any arahant, they'll say, I've had all these ups and downs. You read Ajahn Chah's biography or read his talks, it's all about having to deal with different kinds of obstacles, suffering, hunger, tiredness, illness, doubt, uncertainty, obstacles in his practice of vipassana, reaching kind of the cliff's edge but not being able to go further, all kinds of obstacles. But he managed to go through them all, but with some suffering. Ajahn Mahabua gained deep samadhi and then he lost it all. He said if he could blame someone for losing his samadhi, he'd go and he'd punch them in the face straight away. He was so upset that he lost his samadhi. Imagine this, you gain samadhi, your mind is so peaceful, one-pointed, nothing bothers you, and then you lose it. It's like winning the lottery and then the next day you've lost it already. Must be very frustrating. So, suffering, dukkha patipata, is probably the more likely one for most people. But how much suffering depends, doesn't it? You know, wise people tend to suffer less. People who develop samadhi tend to have less suffering because their samadhi brings them a lot of happiness. People who've traditionally or from an early point in their practice keep the precepts well have less suffering because they are developing so much kindness and good qualities of mind. Their sila protects them from a lot of suffering. Some people learn their lessons the painful way, don't they? They break precepts and then they regret and they see the sufferings and then they keep them after that. But they have to break them first. They learn the hard way, like Angulimala. Oh, Angulimala went around killing so many people, finally met the Buddha, finally heard the Dhamma, finally became enlightened, but then still nobody liked him. He went out collecting food in the morning, people would shout at him, spit at him, throw stones at him. He's an arahant already, still has to go through all this suffering. It didn't affect his mind, but he still had to deal with it. So dukkha patipata is probably the more realistic, but there are those who have developed their barami for many lifetimes, so their enlightenment is very quick and without any suffering.ภาษาไทยถ้าเพื่อนที่มาปฏิบัติธรรมนั่งสมาธิในโบสถ์ด้วยกันแล้วเขาหลับแล้วกรนด้วย เราควรสะกิดปลุกเขาไหม อ่านยากหน่อยหรือเราแค่ปล่อยวางโฟกัสที่อ่านได้ไหมช่วยหน่อย Need some help with handwriting. Got most of it. I'll answer in English as well.มีใครวิกรายตาดีไหมหรือต้องใส่แว่น ลองดูให้วิกรายกันเลยวิกรายมานี่ทันไหมโอ้แว่นตามาแล้ว
เพื่อนที่มาปฏิบัติธรรมนั่งสมาธิในโบสถ์ด้วยกันแล้วเกิดหลับกลนด้วยเราควรจะสะกิดหรือปลุกเขาไหมครับกลัวรบกวนเพื่อนคนอื่นเขาจะบาปไหมครับหรือเราแค่ปล่อยวางแล้วเราก็ปฏิบัติสมาธิเอาอย่างเดียว
โอเคเข้าใจทุกปีนะก็การกรนในศาลาก็ไม่ค่อยดีเนาะแต่มักจะมีอย่างนี้เพราะอยู่บ้านก็นอนตามสบายวันละหลายชั่วโมงพอมาปฏิบัติธรรมอาจจะนอนน้อยลงแล้วก็กลางคืนมี ลมมีฝนบางที่นอนไม่สะดวกก็เลยนอนน้อยก็เลยเข้ามาในศาลาบางทีก็หลับเลยสติมันน้อยไปก็เลยหลับแล้วก็หลับแล้วก็หลับลึกก็เลยกรนเลยเราควรจะไปปลุกเขาไหมก็ที่เข้ากรนแสดงว่าเขาปลุกตัวเองไม่ได้แล้ว เลยจุดที่จะช่วยตัวเองก็ในวัดเซนเขาก็มีเจ้าหน้าที่ปลูกให้มีไม้มาแตะที่ไหล่บางคนเห็นว่าเป็นดีบางคนไม่ชอบเลยแตะที่ไหล่ก็เอ๊ะอะไรมาทำอะไรแต่ว่าก็ปลูกได้ ก็ปลูกก็ดีนะเพราะว่าเหมือนที่ว่าก็รบกวนคนอื่นศาลาไม่ใช่ที่นอนสำหรับคนถ้าเรารู้ตัวว่าเราเป็นคนที่หลับแล้วก็กรนเพื่อนอาจจะเคยบอกแล้วถ้าวันที่เราเหนื่อยมากๆกำลังนั่งหลับแล้วก็กรนก็น่าจะออกไปนอนสักตื่นหนึ่งที่เต็นท์แล้วก็กลับมาแทนที่จะไปรบกวนคนอื่นเพราะว่าเราก็ไม่ได้เกิดประโยชน์ในขณะที่เรานอนหลับเราก็ไม่รู้เรื่องแล้วก็เพื่อนก็จะรำคาญก็เลยถ้าจะดีก็ออกไปนอนแล้วก็ค่อยมาส่วนเพื่อนที่นั่งอยู่ด้วยกันมีสองนายมีสองอย่างหนึ่งที่ว่างก็ปล่อยวางฝึกหัดเมตตาอดทนแล้วก็เมตตาไม่สนใจถ้าทำได้ก็ดีอาจารย์ทำมาหลายปีแล้วนะโกรธไม่ได้เพราะว่าโกรธเป็นกิเลสใช่ไหมจริงอยู่เขาน่ารำคาญเพราะว่าเขาโกรธแต่ว่าถ้าเราโกรธเราก็ผิดเราก็ต้องฝึกโตอีกแล้วโกรธอาจจะพิจารณาทำไมเสียงโกรธเราโมโหจะมีความรู้สึกเขาไม่ควรจะโกรธไม่ควรจะรับในศาลาไม่ควรเรามีทิฏฐิตรงนั้นใช่ไหมก็เลยโกรธถ้าเป็นเสียงนกมันอาจจะเสียงดังเหมือนกันแต่เราไม่คิดอะไรมากเพราะมันเป็นนกแล้วเรารู้นกเขาเป็นอย่างนั้นแล้วก็ทำอะไรไม่ได้อยู่แล้วก็เลยไม่ได้โกรธแล้วมีเสียงรถวิ่งผ่านมันอาจจะเสียงดังเหมือนกันแต่ทำอะไรไม่ได้ก็เลยไม่โกรธแต่ทำไมโกรธกับคนนี้เพราะเขาไม่ควรจะกรนในศาลามีความเห็นตรงนี้ก็อาจจะเอาถือเป็นที่ศึกษาเรื่องทิฏฐิมานะของตนก็ได้จนกระทั่งปล่อยวางเมตตาให้อภัยเขาแล้วก็ฝึกสมาธิต่อก็ดีหรือถ้าอีกนายหนึ่งเราเป็น ลูกศิษย์พระโพธิสัตว์เราเห็นคนนี้กรนทุกคนรำคาญเราก็เลยเสียสละก็ไปปลุกเขาบอกเขาคุณกำลังรับกรนอยู่นะคนอื่นรบกวนสถานที่นะพูดนิ่มพูดสุภาพอะไรก็ชวนให้เขาเดินจงกรมก็หน่อยแบบพระโพธิสัตว์ช่วย แบบเจ้าหน้าที่ในวัดเซนก็ที่เดินมาแล้วก็แตะที่ไหล่บางทีเราไม่ต้องแตะที่ไหล่เราก็ใช้เสียงก็ได้แตะก็ได้จับแขนก็ได้ช่วยก็แล้วแต่นะแล้วแต่พิจารณาแต่ถ้าเราโกรธอันนี้เป็นกิเลสเขาอาจจะช่วยให้เราเห็นกิเลสก็ได้ The question is, if we're sitting in the hall and a fellow meditator is falling asleep, and they fall asleep and they go so deep that they start snoring, and they're bothering everyone because they make a loud noise, what should we do? Should we carry on just sitting there, mindfully practicing and letting go? Or should we go and wake them up so that they stop snoring? I say, good question. I'm not sure there's a simple answer here. I knew one monk who snored, but if you woke him up, he got really angry. And then everyone's like, don't want to touch him. So you'd rather be with the snoring than the anger of that monk waking up angry. Life is sometimes like that. It's full of difficult choices. Or, as I was saying in Thai, you could look at your own mind in this situation and say, I'm getting annoyed with this sound of someone snoring. This is a good opportunity for me to work with my own attachment, my own sense of self, my attachment to the view they shouldn't be snoring, this is the wrong place, which is your own view that's coming up and it's making you angry. So work with it. Just let it go, just let it be, it's just a sound. And there's many sounds, aren't there? There's some sounds don't make us annoyed because you know there's nothing you can do, so you don't get angry. Airplane, car, birds, deers barking at night. Things that you really can't do much about doesn't really annoy you, does it? Because you know that's just the way it is. But if it's a person, there'll be this thought, they shouldn't be doing that. Then you get angry because you're attaching to this view, they shouldn't. That's what you could investigate. And maybe the sound is actually not as loud as some other sounds that don't make you angry. So just observe the whole process, what's going on, and maybe you can learn something about how we attach to views, then we get annoyed, angry. Or, I would say another option, maybe the way of the Bodhisattva, and because it's useful for everyone, you do go and carefully tap them like they do in the Zen monasteries. They tap you on the shoulder when you're falling asleep. But you have to be careful because that person could be like the monk who got really angry, and they kind of, you tap them and they go, what? And they don't like you. But a bodhisattva is doing what is good for everyone with a real purpose, so maybe you sacrifice that, even if they get grumpy when you gently tap them and say, do you know you're snoring, you're annoying everyone. You do it for the place, for the environment to improve and help the retreat. Of course, if you're the one who's snoring, when you're snoring you don't know, that's the whole point. You're asleep, you don't know it. But if you realize you've been asleep, or someone tells you, do you know you snore in the hall, that's probably a message that maybe you should go and have a rest. You've got a tent, just go and sleep a bit more rather than bringing your snoring into the hall, which is not a place for sleeping, it's a place for meditation. So, everyone goes through a little bit of drowsiness, but if you're really full on snoring, you should go back and just either walk meditation or go and have a lie down and sleep and then come back when you're more rested. It's really not the appropriate behavior for a hall because this is a meditation hall and many people are here. So if you are aware that you snore when you're in the hall or someone tells you, that's a cue to maybe go outside and wake up or else actually have a sleep. And the Buddha said it's all right if you're really tired and you're just sitting there falling asleep. The Buddha said, yeah, okay, if it's really that bad, just go and have a sleep. And then when you're rested, come back. Sometimes it is just a hopeless situation and you're so sleepy. Everyone's been working and then they come to the retreat and, the first day of the retreat, rather than putting effort into the meditation, it's just, I need to sleep more. If we're honest, a lot of people are coming with that sort of karma from having worked and being tired the last few days, come into the retreat. So the first day is always a lot of sleepiness. Second day, maybe by the third day you'll be waking up a bit more. It's the same with the restless mind, isn't it? The first day it's always, where am I, what am I doing, thinking a lot. Second day a bit less, third day maybe you start to settle down, more peaceful. But if you know you're a sleeper and a snorer, try not to do it in the hall because it does annoy people. The monk who used to be woken up because he was snoring and would get grumpy, one of his answers was, when someone woke him up, they said, do you know you're snoring, you're disturbing everyone? He said, you're all meditating, I thought you're all supposed to be letting go. You can't win. Dear Ajahn, could you please explain how to deal with mental distractions? Sounds like the entire path of practice there. Well, the simple, quick answer is sati. Sati sampajanya. Mindfulness and clear awareness. It's the opposite of distraction. When you have mindfulness and clear comprehension, you're not giving distraction a chance to start in your mind, to be in your mind. It's non-distraction, non-delusion when you're mindful. It's not enlightenment yet, because you can even have what we call miccha sati, wrong mindfulness. And when would that be? It would be when you're doing something with an unwholesome intention, but you're still very concentrated, focused, not distracted. So, they always give the example of, the safe cracker, the thief goes to the safe, like in the movies, listening to the sound of turning the safe. But the intention is he wants to get the money or the jewels from the safe. By very concentrated, very mindful, turning, listening, not distracted. One pointed on his task, but the whole intention is unskillful. Or the hunter shooting his gun at a deer, very focused, undistracted, waiting for the deer. So it's a form of samadhi or mindfulness, but wrong view and aiming to kill. We are practicing right mindfulness, right samadhi, samma sati, samma samadhi. So our aim is to focus the mind with the aim of freeing it from the hindrances, ultimately from all defilement, all unwholesome states. So that's what we're doing every day, and it's hard work because to be honest, we've not practiced enough in the past. We haven't done it enough. So these unwholesome states of mind, the greed, the worry, the sleepiness, the anguish, the fears, the anxieties, the doubts, they've been running around our mind for a long time. They're not just going to go out just like that. Or one moment of mindfulness and they're all gone. I mean, one moment of mindfulness is still good, but you need that second moment and the third moment where you need to keep practicing, and then you might start to see more of these distractions, where they come from, what stimulates them. So why do we keep noble silence on a retreat? I know it's hard work at first, stop talking so much, because what is the number one stimulus for distractions, distracted states of mind? Talking a lot. The more you talk, the more distracted you become. Simple, very simple. So the first day or two in a retreat, you're not talking to everyone, you're not doing the normal things. It's hard work because you have all these impulses and urges to speak. But if you keep doing it, you'll get the reward. Your mind will become less distracted, more focused, more peaceful, more happy. But you have to work at it. How do you deal with mental distraction? You have to work, but it's working with your mind to establish mindfulness, seeing where distractions come from, what you need to do. So one is changing your lifestyle or modifying lifestyle, so talking less, looking at your phone less. You read the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha never talked about people practicing mindfulness looking at their phone. Okay, yeah, they didn't have phones in the time of Buddha, okay. But, he didn't say you can practice mindfulness if you're doing all kinds of things that distract you. So he said if people are practicing mindfulness, when they meet, they talk about Dhamma that supports the practice of mindfulness and restraint and letting go and kindness and forgiveness, all the good things that improve our mind. They talk about that. So ask yourself, when you meet your friends and you talk, how much are you talking about things related to Dhamma or that support meditation or Dhamma, and how much is it, oh, this tastes nice, what did you put in this one? What did you make this from? Food. Or where did you go yesterday? Where were you last year? Where did you go on holiday last year? Where will you go on holiday next year? We do all this talking about stuff that's totally unrelated to Dhamma, and of course the mind gets full of it and it doesn't become very focused, it becomes more distracted. So speech is a huge part of the practice, being more careful with our speech. So noble silence is the easy way, you just cut it out. Hard way is actually speaking with mindfulness. But the Buddha said, you know, two ladies meet at the well in the middle of the village. They're practicing 4 foundations of mindfulness. When they meet, they don't say, what did you do last night? What TV program did you watch last night? They say, what object of mindfulness do you have today? Oh, I'm practicing mindfulness of feeling. I'm being mindful of the feelings that arise as I walk along the road, as I pull water from the well. Or I'm being mindful of the body, the posture, the arising and ceasing of sensations in the body, and the breathing in, the breathing out. They talk about things that support mindfulness practice. So even a mobile phone can do that if you use it to read Dhamma and learn about the Dhamma or communicate Dhamma. It could. But if we're honest, it's mostly about worldly stuff, which distracts you. That's one way you're distracting yourself, all this going out into the world, talking, phones, technology, travel, food, on and on it goes. So we have to practice a lot of restraint, bring the mind back in mindfulness with our seeing, our hearing, tasting, touching, and limiting some of that. So you come into a retreat, you're limiting what you're engaged with. You're not going shopping now, you're not watching TV or movies or stuff, you're not playing games, you're not having parties, I hope. You're just practicing mindfulness. So once you get into that, the simple environment will help. Non-distraction will arise, hopefully. But you have to help it along, you have to do the practice. People out in the world will say, oh, this sounds really boring. What did you do on retreat? Oh, just sat, meditation, walk meditation, 1 meal a day in the forest. It's not the sort of thing you can go home and tell everyone and they'll think, wow, that sounds good. But if you actually do it, you'll know, oh yeah, it's quite good, isn't it? You get a lot of peace, you get insight, many good things come from it. But you have to do it to understand. If you're treating it more as a kind of holiday experience, well, you go back, yeah, it's not going to sound too great. You go to work on a Monday, what did you do last week? Oh, I was on retreat. Oh, what did you do on retreat? Oh, I watched my breath go in, my breath go out. Your mates are going to look at you and go, forget her. They're going to say, I went to Bali and we had cocktails and nice food on the beach and we heard this music and we went up the mountain. You know, people look for distraction. That's the world, the way the world goes. I went to Bali airport once. That's the only time I've been in Bali. We got stuck in the airport because there was a volcano. We spent 8 hours in Bali airport. It's a very distracting place. Lots of shops and restaurants. Now I understand why people go there. Question, mind and breath. Chit กับลมหายใจขอพระอาจารย์ช่วยอธิบายให้ลึกซึ้ง Can you please give a very deep answer? So, the question is simply a statement, mind and breath. The mind and breath, can you give a deep answer? So before I give my answer, I'll take a deep breath. It's in two languages, so I'll speak in English first maybe. Mind and breath, yeah, well you could say that's everything, isn't it? As Luang Por always says, if you don't breathe, you breathe in but you don't breathe out, you die. You breathe out, you don't breathe in again, you die. Life and breath are the same thing, aren't they? Your breath is your life is your breath. It's that important. So if you're mindful of each breath, you're really in touch with yourself, who you are in this moment, because your whole life depends on it. Your mood and your breath are related. You'll notice when your mood is very peaceful, your breath becomes a certain way, becomes very refined, tends to become a bit longer, smoother, more refined. When you're very upset, your breath becomes short, fast. Your breath and your state of mind are related. Your breath and your health are related. When you're unhealthy, often breathing becomes a problem. When you have a cough, like you know me, I often get colds and coughs, so I've often... And breathing meditation can become a little difficult when you've got a nose full of mucus. But it's your health, mental health and physical health are related to your breath. So it's a very, very important place you can learn from. Mindfulness of breathing is not the only way to develop mindfulness or train your mind, but it's a very good way. And I usually recommend it for anyone beginning meditation. As you become more skilled, well, maybe you experiment with other meditation techniques, metta, goodwill, the body, contemplation of the body, and then of course contemplating the three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta. But the breath is a very good starting point because it just brings you right in touch. The more you're mindful of your breath, the more you're in touch with your body and your mind. And when you're mindful of the breath, mind and body meet at the breath. If you're successful, you are mindful of your breathing, at that moment you know exactly where your mind is. It's not distracted, is it? You're all going with the in-breath, the out-breath. If you do this a lot, even when you get up and go away and do other things, you're not sitting here in a hall, you're doing other things, you can still stay with the breath if you've done it a lot. Most people find that very challenging, to walk and watch the breath, but if you practice, you may become more aware of your breath as you walk or do other activities. So the breath and the mind can work together, and it can be a way you can control your emotions better. So you're very upset, you go to the breath to calm yourself down. You're very afraid, you go to the breath to calm down. You're very angry, you can go to the breath to calm down. You have a lot of desire for something, you can go to the breath to help calm down, let go of that desire. You can use the breath like that both to restrain unwholesome mental states, to bring up mindfulness, and then to contemplate things as impermanent, anicca. Each breath is impermanent. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And it's telling you something, isn't it? It's sending you a message. It's saying life is impermanent. The body and the mind are constantly changing. And when you put the mind on the breath, you might notice that more and more. So they call it the crown. The breath is the crown of all meditation objects. We believe it's what the Buddha was using on the night of his enlightenment. Many teachers have used it, but not alone. Sometimes they say, like in the forest tradition in Thailand, they tend to use Buddhanusati first. Recite Buddho, 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 recollect the Buddha, and then move on to Anapanasati later. Others just start with the breath straight away. And many people have become enlightened using the breath meditation. So it's a vehicle to realize these Four Noble Truths we're talking about. As I said, it's not the only meditation object, but it's a very good one, and it's a good one to start with if you're new. So in Thai, ขออธิบายลึกซึ้ง จะพยายามนะเราปฏิบัติกำหนดหายใจเข้าหายใจออกเพื่อจะได้ฝึกสติรู้กายรู้ใจอยู่ในปัจจุบันแล้วลมหายใจเข้าออกเราดูจิตได้ดูอารมณ์ของจิตได้ดูกายได้รู้จักกายของตนได้จากลมในช่วงแรกเราก็ฝึกใจให้มีสติอยู่กับลมและถ้าใจอยู่กับลมแล้วรู้ลมเข้าลมออกรู้ก็ใจอยู่ในการควบคุมของเราในขณะนั้นเรารู้ว่าใจอยู่ที่ไหนเพราะอยู่กับลมเพราะปกติปัญหาของเราก็คือใจมันจะวิ่งออกไปตลอดเวลาคิดโน่นคิดนี่ลื่นหลับเราไม่ค่อยทันจิตใจของเราไม่ค่อยทันความคิดความรู้สึกต่างๆแต่ถ้าเราฝึกลมหายใจเข้าออกกำหนดดูมีสติสัมปชัญญะกับลมมีโอกาสที่จะรู้ว่าใจอยู่ที่ไหนก็อยู่กับลมแล้วเราใช้ลมควบคุมอารมณ์เช่นเราโกรธเราก็กำหนดที่ลมก็ความโกรธก็ดับลงไปได้มีความโลภหรือความกำหนัดอารมณ์นั้นก็ดับลงไปได้มีความกังวลหรือความกลัวอะไรก็มาอยู่ที่ลมก็ทำให้ความกลัวหายไปหรือความกังวลใจหายไปได้คือเราใช้ควบคุมอารมณ์ทำให้กายเบาทำให้ใจเย็นได้แล้วในที่สุดก็ใช้เป็นฐานของวิปัสสนาด้วยฝึกพิจารณาความไม่เที่ยงของลมเองมันเข้าแล้วก็ออกเข้าแล้วก็ออกมันไม่เที่ยงพิจารณาความไม่เที่ยงของสังขารร่างกายของเวทนาของความนึกคิดด้วยก็เลยสามารถที่จะบรรลุธรรมทำให้มรรคมีองค์แบบประการสำเร็จได้จากการดูลมหายใจเข้าออกเข้าใจลึกซึ้งในอริยสัจธรรมได้จากการดูลมหายใจเข้าออกที่สำคัญคือเราจะดูมากน้อยแค่ไหนคนส่วนใหญ่ก็ดูนิดหน่อยแล้วก็เลิก สติไม่ค่อยมั่นคงสมาธิไม่ค่อยแน่นพอดูนิดหน่อยแล้วก็เลิกเรามาปฏิบัติธรรมที่วัดเราก็มีโอกาสปฏิบัติมากๆเดินก็ยังดูลมได้ถ้าถนัดนะถ้าเรารู้สึกดีเราก็เดินก็ดูลมนั่งก็ดูลมถ้าอยากจะพิจารณาก็ค่อยๆก้าวออกไปลงพิจารณาความเกิดดับของอารมณ์ของความนึกคิดความรู้สึกในใจของเวทนาในกายพิจารณาความไม่เที่ยงของร่างกายได้แต่ให้ฐานเป็นการฝึกลมหายใจเข้าออกจะได้มีสติต่อเนื่องแล้วก็ค่อยพิจารณา Another question. Dear Ajahn, someone told me that I should recite Amitabha to be reborn in the Pure Land, as it is really hard to enter the stream by our own effort in this human life. However, I don't know much about the Pure Land. What is your view about this? Well, I think it's also quite hard to enter the Pure Land. So entering the stream may be still a viable option here. Amitabha Buddha is considered to be the longest serving bodhisattva, being who's made a declaration, a determination to become a Buddha. And they did it a long time ago and they're still practicing. I think they say Amitabha Buddha means the long-lasting, everlasting Buddha. Really, it's a bodhisattva who's waiting until everyone else is enlightened and then they'll get enlightened. So amazing, powerful barami, because they've been building barami for so long. The Pure Land nowadays tends to be seen more as a kind of a heaven realm. In Theravada Buddhism, it really corresponds to the abodes, the Brahma realms of the Anagami. Say somebody reaches Anagami, they practice their samatha insight meditation, and abandon the first 3 fetters, become Sotapanna, weaken the next 2 fetters, become a once returner, Sakadagami, then abandon the next 2 fetters, they abandon 5 fetters, they become what we call a non-returner, Anagami. And if they were to die as an Anagami, they won't be reborn as a human. That's why they call them a non-returner. They're reborn in the Brahma realms, and there's 5 Brahma realms for Anagamis, depending on the strength of their different indriya, different qualities such as sattha, virya, sati, samadhi, panya. And they will reach enlightenment from those Brahma realms. They have jhana, so they're born as Brahmas. So that's the Theravada version of the Pure Lands. Only Anagamis can be reborn there. But in the Mahayana tradition, it seems to be more kind of open. I'm not an expert, so I may well be wrong, so I won't say too much. And I don't want to put anyone's faith off either, because there's many good people practicing, following the way of Amitabha or the Pure Land way. But it's this wish to be with the Bodhisattva in the Pure Land. So they make that wish and do lots of good things to get there, such as chanting and meditation, a lot of dana, helping other people, which is all good. But I would say equally difficult to be reborn in what we call Den Sukhawadi, in the Pure Land, as it is to enter the stream as a Sotapanna in the more traditional Buddhist way. Either way, and when the Dalai Lama came to Melbourne once, he said, practicing Mahayana Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, same. You're practicing for enlightenment, same. You have to keep the precepts, same. You have to develop your meditation, develop samadhi, same. Practice dana, same. We get so caught up nowadays on these differences, whether it's political views, footy teams, Theravada, Mahayana Buddhism. We make so much of all these differences, and then we argue, and you kind of lose the point, miss the point. We're here to practice what the Buddha taught. There's only one Buddha. There's not many Buddhas. There's one Buddha teaching the Four Noble Truths. You can approach them from different routes and different perspectives, you might say, but it's just Four Noble Truths. So whatever tradition attracts you, and whether it's Mahayana, Amitabha Buddha, the Bodhisattva path, or Theravada, Vipassana, Four Noble Truths, I would just put a lot of effort into it, and you probably find you end up more or less going in the same direction. Ooh.อยากทราบว่า 1. แม่ชีศีล 8ไหว้แม่ชีศีล 8ด้วยกันได้ไหมศีล 8ไหว้ศีล 8ได้ไหมก็ได้ This is obviously a Thai question. แม่ชีรับไหว้โยมได้ไหมศีล 8ไหว้ศีล 8ได้ไหมก็ได้แล้วก็ไหว้ทุกคนจริงอยู่พระพุทธเจ้าบอกศีล 8จะสูงกว่าศีล 5เสียสละมากกว่า ก็เลยถ้าเป็นเมชีเป็นนักบวชออกบวชแล้วออกจากบ้านออกจากเรือนไปอยู่วัดหรือไปที่ไหนที่หนึ่งถือศีลแปดคฤหัสถ์ผมยาวถึงคฤหัสถ์บางที่ก็ถือศีลแปดเป็นครั้งเป็นคราวถ้าเจอเมชีก็ควรจะกราบเมชีเพราะเมชีเป็นนักบวชแต่ว่าเราถือศีลแปดเมชีก็ไว้เราได้เพราะเรามีศีลแปดบางที่ก็อยู่ที่ใจคนเนาะพระส่วนใหญ่ก็ไม่ได้รับไหว้โยมแต่ว่าให้พรกับโยมโยมก็กราบพระไหว้พระเพราะพระมีศีลปาติโมกขศีลมากกว่าโยมก็เลยตามประเพณีตามสมุติเราก็ไหว้พระเพราะเราเป็นฆราวาสแต่พระบางที่ก็ให้พรก็ยกมือไหว้ให้โยม ได้เวลาโยมถวายสังฆทานพระก็จะยกมือไหว้เพราะยกมือไหว้ความดีของโยมที่ถวายสังฆทานพระอยู่ได้เพราะโยมพระก็เลยถือตัวไม่ได้พระจะถือว่าเกงยิงไม่ได้แต่ว่าพระถือศีลมากกว่าโยมก็เลยบางที่ควรที่โยมญาติโยมจะกราบพระไหว้พระเพราะว่าศีลมากกว่าพระด้วยกันเจอกันถ้าเป็นพระอาวุโสบวชก่อนพระบวชที่หลังก็จะกราบพระที่บวชก่อนแต่ก็ยังไหว้กันได้เพราะเป็นพระด้วยกันโยมก็ไหว้กันได้โยมศีลแปดเจอกันก็ไหว้กันได้ไม่แต่ศีลแปดไม่ถือตัวก็ไหว้ศีลห้าได้เมตตา ไม่เห็นเป็นอะไรแต่นี่คงจะอยู่ที่คนเนาะThere's a question about if you keep the 8 precepts, should you lift your hands in respect or bow to a Buddhist nun who keeps the 8 precepts? If maybe you're a lay person, like on retreat, you're not a nun, but you meet a nun who regularly keeps the 8 precepts, you can still bow to her. She's got a shaved head, she's an ordained person. You keep 8 precepts maybe temporarily on retreat, well, she can also lift her hands in Anjali to you. And you're paying respects to the goodness of the person, the precepts that they're keeping. But if it's you're a lay person, you have long hair maybe, and you meet an ordained person, whether it's a monk, novice, nun, you can lift your hands in respect to them because they're an ordained person who's gone forth. But they also have to be appreciative of you because you can only live as an ordained person because lay people are kind enough to support you. Everything we eat comes from lay people. Everything we wear comes from lay people. The buildings come from lay people. So monks or nuns always have to be remember that. Yeah, if you think about it, say me, I've been a monk 40 years. They say every 7 years, all the cells in your body have changed completely, every last cell. You know, cells are being born and dying all the time. So after about 7 years cycle, everything is new, finally, and that keeps going through your life. So every last molecule of this body was given to me by people like you. So my body is not self, it's not mine, so I can let go of it. But I also have to be grateful to you, because you gave me the food, the clothing, the whatever I use. And that's the same for every monk. Monks cannot be arrogant or condescending or take it for granted, because their entire livelihood depends on the kindness of lay people. So when lay people bow to monks, it's because the monks have sacrificed, they keep all these precepts and rules, okay. What the monks do, monks can bless you, so monks will lift the hand up in a blessing. So we give blessing to you every day. You offer Sanghadana, we always lift our hands up. just as a little blessing. So when you're bowing to a monk or a nun, you're bowing to the precepts that they're keeping, the robes, the shaven head, the symbols of the monastic life you're bowing to. You may not actually like the person. Maybe there's some monks you like, some you don't. Some nuns you like, some you don't. It's not a personality contest. It's the shaven head, the robes, the renunciation, the rules that they keep. That's what you're bowing to. And the same for a layperson meeting another layperson. Say like Ajahn Chah used to get in trouble sometimes. He'd have the 8 precept lay people sit up the front of the hall because they keep 8 precepts. And that's something worthy of praise. He'd give a kind of status to them. And then the ones who just come in for the day and keep 5 precepts or less than 5 precepts, they sit at the back of the hall. So sometimes these very important VIP people would come to the monastery from Bangkok. There's nowhere to sit at the front because all the 8 preceptors are sitting, filled up all the seats. And Ajahn Chah would say that's correct, because these VIPs still only keep 5 precepts, if that. So in a traditional Buddhist monastic environment, you give value to the precepts. Whoever has more precepts, they sit ahead. If it's 2 monks, well, you always ask who ordained first. The junior bows to the senior, or a novice monk bows to a monk. Nuns the same. The senior nun, the junior nun will bow to the senior nun. And lay people, if they keep 5 precepts, should respect those who keep 8 precepts. That's why we have you take your food before the daily visitors here, because you're keeping 8 precepts. But it doesn't mean to say you can be arrogant. You also have to have kindness for the 5 precept lay people, and you can also lift your hands in respect to them. The important thing is, not to give in to your ego, your desire, your conceit, your arrogance, whoever you are, monk, nun, layman, laywomen. In the previous life of the Buddha, he said, one of the previous life stories of the Buddha, he was a king. And he's going through his kingdom right on the border. And in those days, the roads are very narrow, just little ox cart roads, very narrow, not motorways like today. Muddy, narrow track or lane through the countryside. And the king's coming with his chariot and his guys on horses, elephants, who knows. The whole lot, they're coming through. Who should he meet but the neighbouring king coming the other way, because it's a border road. The neighbouring king comes on his chariot with his horses and his elephants and all his retinue. And they meet. Oh, there's no room to go either side. So, who's going to back up? This is a matter of prestige because they're both kings. Who's going to back up? So they think, well, we better talk about this because they're kings, they know how to be diplomatic, they don't want to start a war. It's not Russia, Ukraine here. We're talking about well-developed kings, diplomacy, let's talk about it, let's not fight. So they're there, and they think, we must discuss this. Okay. Who has the most land? Turns out even, both have the same amount of land. Okay. Who has the most elephants? Same. Who has the most sacks of gold? Same. Who has the most wives? Same. Kings had fun in those days. Maybe. Who has more people? Same. Oh, everything is same. What's different then? Who's your teacher? The Buddha. My teacher too. Same. Do you snore when you're in the meditation? No, I didn't ask that. How many precepts do you keep? One kept 5, one kept 8. So the one who kept 8 didn't have to move, the one who kept 5 has to move. So it's in your own interest, keep the 8 precepts. Maybe you'll get through the road quicker. So that's how they sorted it out in those days, who had the most precepts. time has got on, so there's still some questions. We'll keep them for tomorrow, maybe. Because don't want to go on all night. Oh, spiders come. We had a hitchhiker from the kitchen. He came into the box. So that's probably enough for tonight before everyone gets too tired, and we'll end the session here.